Coming up, the things that a date can do to make you go ick. And beware of drinking the happy water. That's all coming up here on this edition, the main edition of Depraved and Debaucherous. Thanks for listening in. I'm King of Podcasts. Thanks for being with me on the program. I know I missed last week doing a Wednesday show, but the Wednesday edition is the longer form edition where we go through a number of stories that are more real-time point of mind that I want to go ahead and get through, because there's so many stories that come out on a regular basis that I want to make sure I get across to all of you. And there's a number of stories I want to get into tonight on the program. And one is the ick factor, which is becoming a very common new trait. And you start hearing that now, especially if you're listening on TikTok or Instagram or people just talking lingo on social media. It's becoming part of our urban dictionary, our vernacular, ick. And this is one of the things that are coming up now on a pretty common basis. Just knowing it's starting to come that way, and it's something you just start getting used to. Yeah, so ick makes you so, ew, okay. And, it's that kind of idea. So some story out of New Zealand brought up the story about the ick factor. And I take this from newshub.co.nz. The modern dating phenomenon of being put off by your date. This is going back in February of 2022, but I saw this here and I'm like, this popped up in my feed and I wanted to bring it up. So it's a popular dating term that describes that moment when someone you're dating does an innocuous thing that totally puts you off. From using the wrong emojis to dancing badly to wearing skinny jeans, the dreaded ick can be triggered by pretty much anything, and once you've got it, there's no turning back, or is there? So there was a senior lecturer with the University of Southern Queensland in Australia, a relationship expert, Dr. Raquel Peel, talking about how the ick factor can range from annoying little habits to something much more significant. And the simple ways are for us to understand the phenomenon. It might be someone's fashion choices, might be seeming trivial, or it could be political views. But the ick can be something you can overcome. The ick can be a moment for reflection. And that can be from acting in advance to avoid the fear of intimacy and rejection by doing the rejection yourself before you get hurt. She says, quote, I think the center of it is fear. We're designed to protect ourselves, and that's okay. We don't want to get hurt, and being in an intimate relationship, the potential for getting hurt is huge. So if the ick makes you untick some boxes, maybe give your date another chance. She says, quote, it is unrealistic in my view to think a partner will tick all the boxes that you will be happy with them 100% of the time. Sometimes, she says, you will be happy with them, sometimes you'll be annoyed, and sometimes for the exact same things. But the ick factor is much more sensitive than that. Because what we know now is that women have been allowed to go ahead and reject guys for a number of reasons. And the ick factor doesn't even have to be just the attitude of the behavior of them. But it's also because certain things that might not have been considered ick are now ick. So, like, in some cases you could think there are some girls that don't want to get kissed on the first date. And the attempt to try to do that gives you an ick. Or if a guy, is trying to be gentlemanlike and trying to be chivalrous, and he wants to open the door for you, and you feel like, well, I can open my own door, ick. Things like that are starting to become where the modern dating trends are changing. Or, I'll pay for the, I'll go ahead and pay for the check. Maybe some girl might say, ick, no, I'll pay for mine. Or if he's trying to ask for going Dutch and you go, ick. These are all ick factor things. And so in this story, I'm bringing up the fact of things a date could do to make you go ick. There's a lot of different things. But regardless of what those things might be, you can't just let yourself be put to a spot where you're giving up on people, because it's already so much right now. You have to realize there are going to be a couple of things that will happen that will make you feel like, you know what, there's quite a few things going on that I just don't feel like. There's going to be things that will mount up, and you can have a list of reasons as to why you're not going to be compatible with somebody else. But sometimes those the nitpicking is too much. And because we're on social media and we're on dating apps, and there's anything that somebody can say, they're so criticized for every little thing they can say. We're in an age of cancel culture. And any little thing somebody can say now, well, because you triggered me. You said something that I don't like. You can make an opinion. And guys, you're being left to walk on eggshells. You know this. If you see a girl that you like, then you have to censor yourself, and then this opens up the fact that because there's something that icks you, then the guy can't be straightforward with you. He's going to start acting like he's not. He's going to pose. He's going to try to act like a status-seeking type of guy, and he's going to do things that are not going to be natural. So he will not be his real self. And so women, where Dr. Peel's talking right there, she's making the right point, because if you're not accepting, number one, your flaws, because you're going to have your own icks that will cause, but you know what? Guys might be a little more susceptible, a little more tolerant of them, okay? Trust me, I think guys would be icked for the fact they have to go shopping and going somewhere where they don't want to go. Say if they have to go to a wedding or a baby shower or to an event to go out with friends that they don't really gel with, and they're doing things they don't want to go do. Okay, go to the green market, go out for brunch. You know, some of these things, you know, I'm thinking about a girl that I knew that just came down here this weekend. She was coming down here for her birthday weekend, and she was with family. And I asked her, because I was kind of interested in her, kind of long distance, but we didn't really do anything at all, because she was talking about maybe we could meet up. But then we had the tropical storm that was down here in Florida that passed through on Friday and Saturday, so I didn't go ahead and see her. She was only here for the weekend. But when I talked to her, I was like, maybe we could still go and hang out. Her thing was, I thought we were just going to hook up and hang out, because it was just kind of the idea where we were. But she wanted to go shopping. She wanted to go parasailing. She wanted to go water sports. She wanted to do all these things that are going on, which, you know, it takes away going to the beach, because she lives up north and she doesn't live near the beach. So you're going to come down near the beach and go to Miami Beach of all places, and maybe not so much downtown Miami, which Miami Beach, listen, there's a thing where Miami Beach gives me the ick, okay? Because it's not that fun. It's nice. I mean, I'd like to go and drive down there once in a while. I used to do that when I was younger. You know, hang out by the clubs or go to the clubs themselves for the overpriced drinks and the overpriced cover, and park for $40 at the Fontainebleau or whatever hotel you want, because they can all charge for value that way. So by the time you get done, you're paying a lot to keep your car someplace, and you're walking everywhere and walking a lot. And there are no trolleys or buses or cars or anything like that that really are affordable for you to get around. So you're going to be walking everywhere. And then when you're going to places, you're going to go to overpriced restaurants, overpriced shops, and you're going to like try to find things to do. And like I said, you're not going to go find a lot of water sports unless it's going to be completely overpriced. Some of those things you could do on the beach, but you know what? You don't do it in Miami Beach. You go to Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Bahamas. You know, you go to those Caribbean islands where they do that, and let the peddlers do that for you, okay? Because then it's all there, set up, ready to go, right on the beach, and you go on and do your thing. If you want to do it, anyway. I don't care for that. Parasailing, yeah, you want to go do all that? That's fun for you, but that's not fun for me. So there's things where activities that you might have that are not in common. There's a reason that song that Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown did, We Got Something in Common. Trust me, they didn't have everything in common, but they were married. And ask your friends that have boyfriends or girlfriends, okay? Ask couples. And I'm sure, are there things that they make you go ick, that there are things that you don't want to do that you do because you love them? Yes. And they could probably give you a laundry list. So the idea is, do we want to really worry about the ick factor and why that's so important? Because I think you want to give somebody a chance. Yes, they're not going to check all the boxes or tick all the boxes, as she said. And that's something important. You want to keep that in mind, that she's right about that. So, to me, I agree with her. And that if you're asking people in society to be much more tolerant, right? And right now we're in the middle of Pride Month. So we're asking for tolerance, right? Of people just to be existing with them, to be friends and to support them and to perform in some cases, right? That's what you see all these big corporations all doing the rainbow flags, right? Okay, hey, good for them. The bottom line is, to me, is that it doesn't matter what History Month it is or what month anything is that we are here to appreciate awareness or the history or the legacy of any particular race, creed, gender, cultural ethnicity, whatever. Nobody needs to get a month. They should get all year round. Can we all do that? And can we act like we care without trying to just put people down, and because when you start acting like, well, somebody needs to be treated special. No. Treat people like they're supposed to be treated. Just treat them normal. How about that? Normal treatment. Nothing special. Oh, because we care about you. We feel bad for you. No, you don't have to feel bad for them. There's a lot of people that representation matters, where everybody looks out for themselves. Communities look out for their own communities. That's how it should be. And I'm not going to take any handouts or any kind of help from somebody that doesn't understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to prefer to be with somebody, hang out with somebody, or, support people that have come through my plight and understand where I've come from, or people that are like-minded like me, while respecting the cultures, the barriers, the lifestyles, and everything else that everybody likes to do with their lives. Let people live. How hard is that? And if somebody has certain things they want to do and you're dating them, and listen, sometimes it's a cultural and societal norms, right? I mean, let's put it like this. What about those people that are dating interracial? You're dating somebody that definitely, family does different things differently. Just being around somebody's family or around their friends makes you ick. And then you're not even judging them anymore. You're judging the choices of who they hang out with and their choices of what they decide to go do when they're not with you. Like, at what point are you going to find somebody that's ick-free? It's impossible. So stop doing that. Overcome the ick factor. Don't let it consume your life, because you know what? Everybody that you're going to meet is not perfect, and neither are you. So if they have a couple of icks, accept them. As long as there's something that you could accept. That it's not going to make you go crazy if the ick factors. And if you want to talk to them about it, then at least say that this is how you feel about it. No big deal. Okay, let's move along. We're going to go into something that is going to probably be considered political, because we always hear this. The myth of toxic masculinity. This is an op-ed piece from Professor Michael Carson. And let's just say this where he's being said. He's a professor of psychology at the University of Denver. And he actually wrote a book called Little Things, Sex, Love, Murder, a novel. And here's some of the things he says in this story that comes in through Psychology Today. Desirability of masculinity depends on how you define it. Okay. So he's trying to go ahead and put a different definition of what toxic masculinity is and how it's being perceived and how people say it on Twitter or how you hear it in certain circles. He says the term toxic masculinity usually refers to paranoia, sociopathy, malignant narcissism, or self-righteous vindictiveness. Traits are as common in women as in men, although in men they might be likely expressed as physical violence. To blame something like violence simply on a person's maleness is inaccurate and reveals bias. Children, regardless of gender, should be raised to own, accept, and master their own aggression rather than hate it. And it's nothing to matter if they're masculine or feminine or what kind of traits they might be feeling and who might persuade them to feel different. So there's an article in the APA's American Psychological Association's journal calling for a redefinition of masculinity from what it calls hegemonic masculinity, meaning toxic masculinity, is something more feminine. Yes. I agree with this right here, because toxic masculinity is men or males acting out their feminine energy. Acting like women. That is toxic masculinity. Because that's not a guy being a guy. That's a guy acting out, letting his narcissism, his manipulation, his toxicity get the best of him. So they act out, they rage, they get angry, they lash out, and they do things really stupid. They can assault physically, emotionally, mentally. And these are the things that need to be understood. So in here they say oppression and violence are blamed on toxic masculinity, and boys, according to the article, should be raised in relationships of empathy, mutuality, and empowerment. No, they don't mean sports teams, dojos, or the military, although it's unclear why not, because these organizations certainly provide relationships of that sort. What they mean is boys should be less, boyish. Right. Your boys growing into men. So when you see guys that are, I look at them all the time, and I think these guys would never play in a sport. They would never, get into they might get into a club, they might get into certain things, but what about the ones that are always growing up? They don't go outside to play. They don't go outside with their friends, hang out, and go do something, something active, exert a little energy, play some basketball, play some football, play some baseball, whatever. I mean, something. Or they're getting out and doing something with themselves. Or they're in a club where they're doing something where they're just, playing sports, or they're going out and they're doing something physical, whatever it might be. As not so much, saying, oh, well, that's going to just, they're all playing video games all the time. They're just going to sit home and binge Netflix all day long. And they're not going to do anything else. Just stay sedentary all the time. Hell, I might do that, and I'm not done that for a long time, but at least I move around and move my fat ass, okay? It's not anything about me not trying to move. It's about the amount of food I put in my mouth. That's my problem. And what I put in. Let's be honest. Now, the desirability of masculinity, like anything else, depends on how you define it. If you think it means beating up defensive victims, then I get the distinct impression, and this is exactly how the APA sees masculinity. Then it seems like a bad thing, because it is a bad thing. Right? Beating up defensive victims and just hurting somebody that can't defend themselves. So his detective novel, Little Things, he writes a description of masculinity saying, quote, I like providing for my family. I like being right, and I like sex. I'm proud of my success, and I don't feel guilty about other people's suffering unless I caused it. I think it's more important to be funny than to be tender. I don't think you hurt my feelings is a valid argument. Now, I like where he's going with this. When people talk about toxic masculinity, they don't mean masculinity at all. They mean paranoia, sociopathy, sociopath, malignant narcissism, or some form of self-righteous vindictiveness. You know what some of those guys are? Nice guys. You know who was like that? That could have definitely fallen to that dark side? Yours truly. I do this show specifically because I know what I could have been, because I never grew up right and knew how to be a mature adult dating. I didn't know how because I never got that far. And then when I got into my 30s, you know what? I just gave up. My 20s, I was trying so hard. Chasing, I don't know what I was chasing, but I knew I was wrong. But in my 20s, I had traits of toxic masculinity, and I'm willing to admit it because I learned that. I learned it. When I read Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and he was explaining everything, I seriously kid you not, when I heard that first couple of chapters, I stopped, I almost cried. Hit the nail on the head. And I sure it's a cliche, but it's so true. He stopped me in my tracks, and I actually had to park and stop. I was listening to the audiobook, because when I heard it, I was like, oh man, he's talking about me. He's talking about me. And I'm sure a lot of you guys out there might have read the same book and got that same feeling. About first chapter in, you start hearing all the traits of what a nice guy will do, which is being insincere and not honest and being toxic and showing signs of toxic masculinity. But now we also know that women have the same traits. So we have to know that this also goes the other way around. That women also have the same toxicity as well in themselves. And some of that might have come from a guy that expressed his toxic masculinity and it rubbed off on her. So now because of the abuse she received, she's now taking it on everybody else. It's common in women as well as in men, although in men, these ills are more likely to be expressed as physical violence, though still at a low rate. But to blame the violence of the maleness rather than, say, the paranoia of the perpetrator is like blaming robbery and murder on the race of the perpetrator. When faced with the image of a school shooter, if you hate men, you see a man. If you like men, you see a paranoid person. If you hate black people and look at violent crime data, a disproportionate number of robberies and murders are committed by black people, you see race when you look at perpetrators rather than rage. Masculinity is a good thing in both men. Right. Healthy masculinity. And you know how that works for both men and women? When they have role models, feminine and masculine, in the home. And it doesn't have to be from a man or a woman. It could be either or. Two people that express separate, opposite, parallel types of femininity and masculinity. Something healthy. Masculinity, someone that is supportive, secure, peace of mind, protecting the family, protecting the loved ones, looking out for the loved ones. Doing the hard work that they want for the love of that person who's feminine. It's that part. Masculinity is good with both men and women, but not suited to every situation. That's not the fault of masculinity any more than it is the fault of negotiation, rationality, or democracy that are not well suited to every situation. He goes into some political stuff. We're going to go ahead and pass that. He gets into child rearing and saying about trying to go ahead and avoid this here. What are the implications for child rearing? No, don't raise children to hate their own aggression. Instead, teach them to own it, accept it, and master it. You know, like masculine people do. Okay? So if they're angry because they lost, or they screwed up on something, or something brought them down, and then they act out and they get aggressive about it, they get upset, they should go ahead and get their aggression out, not hold it in. This is where, like, people have their emotions. They need to be able to allow themselves to be balanced out. Don't overly tie masculinity and femininity to whether the child is a boy or girl, because many boys are more feminine than many girls, and many girls are more masculine than many boys. And there's also mistakenly sex-coded attributes like shyness, height, sexual attractions, and sports enthusiasm. Also, stop telling kids how special they are and emphasize how special they are to you. The more kids feel good about being ordinary, the less likely they'll be to aggrandize themselves, villainize others, or exploit others to compensate for the ubiquitous sense that they are not as special as they think they're supposed to be. Right. Because then there's this sense of self that is not realistic, and people need to realize, we are mortal. We make mistakes. We sometimes lose. Our luck can be bad. But it's a struggle that we go through, and we recover ourselves, and we pick ourselves back up. So, promoting healthy masculinities. I like that. It's a very good story. It's a good way to go and put things. Next story, mate poaching. They talk about that in a story, and also from Psychology Today. Approximately 64% of men and 49% of women have tried to poach someone. Yeah, they're interested in somebody else's date, and they're trying to sweep through and steal them. So almost 2/3 of men surveyed and almost half of women surveyed would try to poach someone that was currently in a relationship. And the more mate poaching someone experiences, the less committed they tend to their current relationship over time. When people are in a highly committed relationship, a successful poacher must be markedly more attractive and wealthy than their current partner. Right. The idea is, we do have that thing when we get a little bit jealous or we find somebody more attractive because they are with somebody else. I can't tell how many times when I was in college and I see a girl, I remember an example. There was this one cute Spanish girl. I was friends with a bunch of other people, and she used to dress pretty modest. I mean, still cute. But really, once she found a boyfriend, what happens? She shows more skin. She lets her hair down. She's much more comfortable. She's happier. She's carefree because she's happy she got a guy. And you know what? That girl that was kind of just introverted and very quiet and kind of mousy flowered up into a beautiful butterfly. And now she's a social butterfly and she's happy. And you know what? Then she just became more attractive. She's already attractive, but now she just becomes that more appealing. And when you see a girl that is, or a guy that's all put together, and you see a couple going out together, like, how many times do you notice a couple and you're saying, like, look at the girl, like, man, she looks, it might be something and then all of a sudden you see them with somebody else. They just become more attractive. It is just a psychological mark that we have. And then they say, is mate poaching effective? And the numbers may be disheartening, but another study was published in the Social, Psychological, and Personality Science journal. There was a survey that was asking heterosexual people currently in a romantic relationship to answer questions about relationship commitment, how attractive they found their current romantic partner, and how attractive they found a friend of the opposite sex. And luckily, most friends reported doing little mate poaching, but for those that did, the greater the mate poaching over time, the less committed their friend was to their current relationship. Yeah, because when you're lurking and looking at other options, then yeah, the relationship you're having is going to go bad because you're not focused on the current situation. That happens a lot now because there are women and guys that are always looking at other options. Because people are just dating, and it's like disposable dating. So you're with somebody to upgrade to the next person. And listen, Tom Likas is right about this. I hate to say it, but when he talked about there are women that are, this is my first husband. The next husband's going to have more money and more things. I am always exercising other options. Because there are women out there, when they're beautiful, and they feel like they're the apple of the eye of all these different guys out there, they're always going to find out, well, who can give me more than what I have? Who can give me even more? And they'll do that. Just keep that in mind. One last thing I want to bring up here. Two more things. Number one is the not so obvious warning signs of a breakup. In this story, real quickly, they give you the 4 signs. So the top 4 warning signs of a breakup. Number 1, toxic thoughts seep in. Most couples are simply unable to address real problems because toxic thinking gets them so sidetracked they can't see the real problems of the issues. So people can't talk. They're not able to communicate anymore because they already think, well, I already know this person. I know what they're going to say. So you're already making assumptions before you even get into the real meaning of the matter. Plus, if you've been with somebody so long, have already put some time into it, you already feel like, well, it's not a nothing to lose attitude. It's thinking, well, if I say this, something's going to happen here. Like, you don't want to create the breakup, but then you don't realize because this is going on, you become blind to seeing a breakup coming up. Number 2, inwardly there's less wanting to share personal happenings. Yes, people stop talking about themselves and start talking about their days and what they're doing and what about themselves. Because they're probably sharing those feelings with somebody else. So somebody else is going to get that concern because they might have lost interest in sharing that with you. And that can very well happen. Number 3, disconnecting and disappearing. We all know this one here where partners become frustrated because they become distant. We're not texting anymore. We're not talking anymore. We don't see each other as much. And when we see each other, it's only just to do something else. Like, it's like we're not even dating anymore. That's also a pretty telltale sign. And number 4, frequent breakups and makeups. But after going through breakups, couples tend to minimize or forget them after making up. But when you get into when you are heading the wrong relationship direction to a dead end, then these temporary endings are signs that the breakup is going to be permanent. By just going breakup to makeup, there's a song by the Stylists that talk breakup just to makeup is a game for fools. And they're absolutely right. Final story I want to bring up here on the program. What's in Happy Water? This could be making its way because this Vice article comes out, and guess what? There are people that read Vice, and I bet somebody that listens to this program, they're going to think, man, this might sound like a good idea. So there's a psychoactive beverage that's being created in Asia, in the party scene there. Southeast Asia, actually. Thailand and Myanmar, former Sri Lanka. It's called Happy Water. And it's a powdered mixture of synthetic substances. MDMA, psychedelic, methamphetamine, diazepam, which is the generic for Valium, and ketamine. And it's being dissolved in liquid to produce a psychoactive beverage known as Happy Water. And in the last week, Myanmar Central Committee for Drug Abuse Control revealed that local authorities had seized almost 500 grams of packeted happy water powder, with a street value of $3,000 American. Each packet was sold for the equivalent of $43 and were typically distributed at bars, entertainment venues, clubs throughout the biggest city in Myanmar, Yangon. And then there was a report that Thailand police raided a villa in the beach resort town of Pattaya, which is also one of the biggest sex tourism capitals of the world, arresting over 20 people and seizing a large amount of substances, including happy water powder. And then authorities warned that the drug was being sold illegally on social media and at entertainment venues. And then reports before appeared to be localized to a handful of seizures, but now authorities have stepped in against the drug cocktail and arrested those suspected of trafficking it. So people are getting the drug, putting it in water, mixing it like it's a drink, and nobody knows. So now it's spreading into Myanmar, and that other countries throughout Southeast Asia need to be paying more attention to this novel, potentially dangerous substance. So if it's happening here, it's just a matter of time before you start hearing about this right here coming up everywhere. Because people will say, you know what, I learned about this in Cambodia or Southeast Asia. Here, let's try this. Plus, people are hearing this is something they can make. So imagine if people found out the formula to put this together. Just saying, man. If you hear this phrase, be wary, because you know what you're getting yourself into. It's a vice. You might try it. Can't stop you. All I can do is warn you. And that's all I'm doing right here. All right, that's it for the show. Thanks for listening in. We got another episode, a mini episode coming up on Friday here on the program. And you can catch new mini episodes of Depraved and Debaucherous every Monday and Friday. Just looking for them right around 9 a.m. Eastern. And you can find it in the audio version through wherever you find your podcast. Just look for Depraved and Debaucherous. Please subscribe, rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'd really appreciate the help. And it's also available on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. All of my social media is at King of Podcasts. That's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. And also, if you want to email me, and I'll leave you anonymous if you like, or just make comments on the YouTube video as you watch this. Send comments to the YouTube so I can reply back to them on the air or reply back to in general. If there's any questions or anything you want me to talk about on the program, or email me kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. I hope you'll consider that too. Thanks for listening in. And remember to not judge some people so much, right? Because there's a lot of people out there like you and me that are a little depraved and debaucherous.